Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Hey, what's up? Today we're going to talk about the 4 values of Porn Reboot. And I'm going to share these values with you because chances are that is the reason why you are listening to me in the first place. Chances are you deeply resonate with these values, and among these values are something, or rather is something, that is the key to freeing you from your out-of-control behavior. Also, you might feel that you have some of these values yourself, but in reality, you're fooling yourself. And so my hope is that it's going to shed light on some of the deeper things that motivate us to end our out-of-control behavior. The 4 values are autonomy, free will, critical thinking, and happiness. A little bit of context. Years ago, when I was trying to end my out-of-control behavior, I tried almost every method available, from religious methods to 12-step programs to various sorts of therapy. And today, there are even more options. Today, there's hypnotherapy, there's NoFap, there's semen retention, there's the easy peasy method. There's so many things out there, and it can get quite confusing. It's very easy to jump from one method to the other. And you can use whatever works for you. But my hope is that this will help you align your values with the right program, which is going to allow you to focus on one thing and free yourself. You may also realize that it's time to stop listening or watching me because you realize, like, dude, I just don't resonate with your values. Thank you for telling me, because I feel like my time could be better spent elsewhere. So let's talk about them. The first is autonomy. And when I started seeking different programs, they sounded good to me, but they would always violate one or more of these values. And the first one that was often violated was autonomy. So what is autonomy? Autonomy is basically self-governance. It's your ability to make your own decisions and just live in accordance with your values. That has been very important to me. Now, mind you, back in the day, I didn't have words for these values. I just knew that something clashed. And often people in my life would just say I was stubborn. Well, obviously, because back then I was in my 20s. And to be in your 20s and have very strong values that sometimes flew in the face of society or culture was just not acceptable back then. But now I have words for them. And I'm glad that I have words for them because it really guided me to freedom. Autonomy, being self-governance, made me very uncomfortable with anything that would have power over me. And I would show up to some groups and I was treated as if I was a person who, due to the fact that I had lost control of my sexual behavior, I needed to just give up my power to this group. I was incapable of making decisions for myself. And I was very uncomfortable with that. I would hear that in the voices of therapists. I would hear that in the tone of certain group leaders. And some of you who have struggled with other addictive behaviors have heard it in the tone of maybe your sponsor or a counselor you're working with, or even a coach. If something about that rubs you the wrong way, I urge you to look closely at your values. Are you an autonomous human being? Do you truly value that? The next value will bring this home a little bit more because the next value was free will. And free will simply means that you have the ability to act without constraints, act without feeling as if your life is up to fate, F-A-T-E. There are groups and there are approaches that would tell you that your issue was a genetic issue, like it's in your genes, addiction's in your genes, or that your behavior was completely out of your control. that it was a disease. And it's very comforting to hear that all this time it wasn't your fault, that it was a disease. But you need to understand something. When you are told that something is a disease, it means that by default, you have to listen to an expert at that disease. You lose your autonomy and you have to listen to a doctor. You have a disease, so listen to a doctor. You have a disease of the mind, so listen to a psychiatrist. Immediately, you no longer have self-governance over yourself. An expert now governs over you. I could not accept this. It was comforting to give it up, but I refused to do so. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I would much rather live with my addictive behavior than give up my autonomy and my free will. And here's the reason why. No matter your level of suffering, if you give up your autonomy and your free will so that you can have a brief moment of relief, if you violate that value in one area of your life, yes, even if it is your addictive behavior, my brother, it is going to filter into other areas of your life as well. It is going to trickle down into those other areas. I urge you as we move forward to have an open mind about these things, because I'm going to probably say some things that you might find very disagreeable. The next value is critical thinking. And critical thinking is your ability to analyze and evaluate information objectively. You're able to look at things and identify where there is bias and come to your own conclusions. And when I say critical thinking, I mean critical thinking about everything. When I was seeking a religious answer to my out of control behavior, I thought critically about God. I thought critically about powerlessness. I questioned these things. Yes, I questioned God. You may think that that's blasphemy to say that I question God. But interestingly enough, the process of questioning God made me a more spiritual person. I don't think that I would be a spiritual being or believe in God if I did not question God in the first place. I think I would have faked it if I accepted it simply. But my questioning led me to study the Bible, to study other holy books, and to go deep into meditation. And that was very helpful for me. When it came to relationships, I also questioned relationships. I questioned traditional monogamy. I questioned concepts like saving sex for after marriage. And what did that do for me? Well, what it did for me was that it allowed me to go deeper into intimacy. Critical thinking also made me ask questions like, well, if this behavior is a disease, why is it that some people seem to end their behavior spontaneously? Why is it that some people get married and end their behavior immediately when some don't? Why is it that some people have a kid and when they have their first kid, they swear that they are no longer going to engage in their sexual behavior, and sure enough, they no longer do? But why is it another man has a kid and he gets so stressed out and he falls deeper into his addictive behavior? I was not getting the answers that I needed. And the final one is happiness. Now, happiness is quite difficult to define, so I'll just use a simple definition. It is a state of being in joy and contentment, a general, let's say, satisfaction with your life. And having that as your baseline, that means you're definitely going to be sad, you're definitely going to suffer, but after everything, you will always return to that baseline of joy and contentment. And for some of these programs, brother, it almost seemed as if you were required to be unhappy. Like there were such serious faces on the calls. There were such serious faces in the groups. It was serious business. It was almost as if the unspoken story was that, or expectation was that, well, you enjoyed your life so much. You indulged in so much fake happiness that now you have to pay the price for all that happiness that you front-loaded into your life. Now the process of recovery has to be painful and filled with discipline and sacrifice and just grit. Ugh. Like, I can't do it. I couldn't do it. I can't, and I couldn't. The process of recovery, it didn't have to be this horrible, unhappy thing. But that's what you were told. Oh, your dopamine is depleted. You're going through withdrawal symptoms. So it's going to suck, bro. It's going to suck. It's part of the process. It hurts. No. When I found that there was not a single system out there that could satisfy all my values, autonomy, free will, that could stand up to critical thinking, sustained critical thinking, and that prioritized happiness, I realized that I had no choice. I had to create my own system. And anybody who spent any time using our free resources and learning about the Porn Reboot system will agree that all of the principles within our program points towards these values at the end of the day. They all lead to these values. And I want you to think about yourself. You may agree with these values, but do you really? Are these values actually reflected in your life? You say that you are an autonomous person, that I govern myself, but I also see you needing to take permission from your wife to do things. Oh, I need to talk to my wife about that. We make decisions about these things. I need my wife's permission. My wife doesn't let me do that. You are not an autonomous person. That is a fact. I don't care how you cut it. Sure, if you're making a big decision about buying a home, sure, like consult with your wife. But to say something like, my wife does not let me hang out with my friends. My wife does not let me travel. My wife does not let me. I am sorry to tell you that you are not autonomous. You cannot claim it in one side of your life and not have it in the other. When it comes to free will, acting without constraint, like without feeling that your life is up to fate, you're like, yeah, I have free will. I know that I have a choice. But you want to be a part of the Porn Reboot system, yet you simultaneously want to be powerless. That it doesn't work that way. You want to believe that you are fated to live a certain way. And you do it in different parts of your life. You do it in things like your genetics. You're like, yeah, well, genetically, I'm predisposed to X, Y, Z. Seriously? You know, my dad told me many years ago that I would never have a six-pack. I said, why? And he said, well, because genetically, our family carries a spare tire. The men in our family, we carry a spare tire, and he pointed to his around our waist. So you'll never have a six-pack. I just couldn't accept that. I refused to accept it. Some of you are accepting so much subconsciously. You are accepting fate. You are accepting your financial situation. You are accepting the relationships you're in. You're telling yourself, well, this is the way things are meant to be for my relationship with my partner. I'm destined to work this job forever. I'm destined to live in this country forever. You may not verbally say it, but you actually believe it. Critical thinking. You don't want to think critically. When it comes to like the 12-step groups, sometimes it can be so overwhelming to think of your future, to contemplate a future where you may never end this behavior. It's scary, isn't it? What if I never quit? And you struggle for many years. You struggle for a decade. You've struggled for 2 decades. Whew. In fact, it gets worse as you get older. The material you're watching is getting progressively more and more extreme. So when you go to a step program and you think about the overwhelm, to prevent you from feeling hopeless, they tell you something. And that something is 1 day at a time. Oh, it sounds good, doesn't it? 1 day at a time. It implies that we have to live in the present moment, which we should live in the present moment. It is the only moment we have. But that is what you think is the purpose of that. It serves another, more insidious purpose in those groups. And that purpose is to prevent you from thinking of the future. Now, if you don't think of the future, how can you plan for the future? You're allowed in these groups to plan for your future in other areas of your life. But when it comes to your addictive behavior, you must take it 1 day at a time. So you're not allowed to analyze what your life would look like 2 years from now without this behavior, or 3 years from now without this behavior. You're not allowed to think of any of the different stages of this process. You must do it 1 day at a time. And the only reason for that is to prevent you from falling into hopelessness, which will then cause you to leave that program. It is the only way that they can retain you. The truth is, You must learn how to think of your future. You must learn to plan for your future. You must create an ideal version of yourself in the future. If you only think of yourself today, then you cannot develop the right type of self esteem. What do I mean by this? What I mean is that your self esteem is the reputation that you have with yourself. The reputation you have had with yourself is usually one of failure, of disgust, of self loathing, of betrayal, of disappointment. That is what your self esteem is made up of as a person who struggled with an out of control behavior with pornography. So when you enter something like a STEP program where it is said to take it one day at a time, sure, you're creating a new self image and you're developing a new reputation with yourself. Well, what is this reputation? This reputation is of a person who takes things one day at a time. That's it. You take things one day at a time. While there is nothing wrong with this, if you were to ever slip or relapse, which you likely will, your entire self-esteem falls apart. Because to take things one day at a time and not slip and to relapse is to be perfect. And all of us who are perfectionists, all of us who try to be perfect, do so to simply avoid shame. I work with a lot of high performers, a lot of successful individuals who really try to be perfect. I have bouts of perfectionism myself, but every time I analyze the perfectionism in myself or other high performers, I find a history of shame, trying to avoid that shame. So if you've built up that sort of reputation with yourself that I am perfect, yet you slip or relapse, what is going to happen to your reputation? A reputation that is built entirely on perfection. Well, you're fucked, basically. Everything comes crashing down. And because everything has come crashing down and you were not thinking of your future or building an ideal self in the future, carving and planning and setting goals for everything you would do in the future, when it came to those parts of your life, you have nothing else to lean on except that program. To fall back on them and say, I've lost everything. And they will be there to comfort you. They will be there to pull you up. They will be there to tell you that you just have to start again from the beginning and continue this madness. Critical thinking will prevent you from doing that. Critical thinking got me to ask, wait a minute, one day at a time? For how long? Will it ever stop being one day at a time? Oh, they were like, no, you just don't even think about that. I was like, what do you mean don't think about that? This is a legitimate question. Like, time is our most valuable resource. How long am I going to do this one day at a time thing? Am I ever going to be free? No, you will never be free because it is a disease. It is incurable. What? Who said it's a disease? How is it a disease? How? Like, explain to me how nobody could do that. But in your desperation, you will grasp onto anything you can. As far as I'm concerned, some of these programs out there are straight up cults. Some of them are straight up. You know, the funny thing is, people who have been in the STEP program for many years and end up joining our program think we are a cult. They think we're a cult because we tell them this is not a disease. They're like, what the hell? What do you mean this is not a disease? When they say that, when they say that they are powerless, and we're like, no, you are not powerless. You can make a choice. They're like, are you insane? When we say you don't have to do this one day at a time, don't worry about that. When we say that your slips are data, you don't need to feel shame when you experience a slip. I could absolutely see how somebody will look at you and go like, what do you mean? What's all this free thinking stuff? What's all this you have power and you can question things and you're autonomous? Like, this sounds like some law-breaking stuff. Like, I'm a self-governing citizen. You sound like those people who don't pay taxes, who think that they're sovereign citizens. But at the end of the day, the question is, who is free from their behavior and who is still stuck in their behavior? Did you know that a lot of these programs have only a 5% success rate? This is not me pulling some number out of my butt. You can go Google it. Go and Google the success rates of all STEP programs. And these STEP programs have become the basis for many of the other programs that exist today. There are many coaches who came out of STEP programs. but they don't want to call their program a step program, so they dress it up nicely as something else. You need to think critically. The final value is happiness, that baseline of joy and contentment. There's no point in being a part of our program if you are determined to be unhappy. I don't want to work with you. I do not want to work with somebody who is not willing to prioritize their happiness. We smile, we joke in our sessions. We're not beating ourselves up. I will not allow you to do any of that. Your happiness is the ultimate goal, and you will start learning how to be happy today. In order to do that, you have to become rational about what is actually happening in your life. You have to step away from suffering. And how do you step away from suffering? You step away from suffering by acknowledging your pain. When you experience a strong urge, you want to look at that urge. You want to observe the urge. Even when you relapse and you experience shame, when you experience hopelessness, when you are angry at yourself, you also want to observe it. Instead of doing what we so often do, which is to beat ourselves up and to wish that that did not happen, or to wish that the urge would not continue, or to wish that this strong emotion would go away. Brother, you are experiencing the strong emotion now. You are experiencing the urge now. This is why I'm not a fan of distraction. Go take a walk, go take a cold shower. Those things work. They work. They are very effective in the moment, but they always lead to suffering because unless you can sit in the moment with your pain and accept it, you will never be able to access happiness. Your happiness comes from joy and contentment. Joy and contentment comes from being deeply in the moment and being able to appreciate the goodness that is in every moment. And let me tell you this, below the surface of all the pain that you experience is happiness. I know this sounds crazy. Let's say you're dealing with some sort of chronic pain, back pain, for instance, and you observe the pain, and the pain is not going away. It's right there. But instead of wishing that the pain would go away, oh, it's so painful. Oh my God, damn, it hurts. Oh, it won't leave. If you were to observe it and notice, oh, it's a throbbing pain, or a throbbing sensation. Oh, it's actually pulsing. Oh, it's a stabbing sensation. It's a slicing sensation. You will begin to notice that your brain is interpreting all of those sensations as pain. Your brain has been conditioned to experience that sharp stabbing, slicing, or throbbing in the nerves as pain. It's a signal. It's manifests as something uncomfortable. And don't get me wrong, observing it does not make the pain any less in reality, but it does change your perception of it. It moves you to thinking and viewing things in a more rational and objective way. And the moment you are able to do so, one thing happens. Your suffering stops. The pain remains, but now you understand the pain. But the suffering, the wishing it would leave, the longing for something positive to happen in your life is where deep unhappiness lies. And that disappears. The moment it disappears, you are able to have contentment in your life. You might disagree with me, but let me ask you this. Are you living with a condition in your life right now that is less than optimal? Are you living with a tough financial situation? Are you living with a sexless marriage? Are you living with a risk of losing your job? Are you living with a current health issue? Did you go get your blood work done and the doctor said you are in trouble? Chances are you're dealing with one of these many things. But has that completely robbed you of your ability to be happy? No, it hasn't. You still experience moments of joy and you still experience moments of contentment. You may not appreciate them fully because you still would rather go for the high of alcohol or distract yourself with a movie or orgasm or some other sort of dopamine inducing activity. But you're still fully capable of experiencing joy. So the truth is, at the end of the day, you do have access to happiness. And it's absolutely fine to pursue that and experience that while you're rebooting. So I think I've been rambling a little bit. I'll wrap it up. The 4 values, and these are the 4 values that in order for you to enter the maintenance stage of your reboot, you will have to access are autonomy, free will, critical thinking, and happiness. If you are listening to this on the Porn Reboot podcast, as usual, I really appreciate responses from brothers. I respond to all podcast emails. So all you need to do is send an email to jkemezi@elevatedrecovery.org. And in the subject line, just put the word podcast, and I'll know you are a podcast listener. And for those of you who might watch this particular episode as being aired on YouTube as well, just drop your comments in the comment section below, and I'll give you some feedback. We'll have a conversation. Take care.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.